Attention-seeking behaviors. The why of things, part 15 of 15. In emotionally intelligent relationships, attention is shared naturally and reciprocally, with each person offering care and focus at appropriate times. When someone consistently seeks attention at the expense of others, it can feel exhausting and disorienting, especially since most people don't need constant validation to feel secure. Attention-seeking behaviors occur when someone goes out of their way to be the center of attention, often using dramatic, exaggerated, or manipulative actions to ensure all eyes are on them. This need for attention isn't just about enjoying the spotlight. It's about a deep-seated insecurity that drives them to constantly seek validation, admiration, or reassurance from others. For those on the receiving end, it can feel like they're constantly being pulled into someone else's emotional orbit with little room for their own needs or perspectives. What it is: a pattern of consistently trying to capture attention through dramatic outbursts, exaggerated stories, or manipulative behaviors. This might include creating conflict, playing the victim, or making grand gestures to ensure that others are focused on them. What it isn't: enjoying occasional attention or praise. Emotionally healthy people can appreciate being acknowledged or admired without needing it constantly. They can also recognize when it's someone else's turn to be in the spotlight and support that person without feeling threatened. Why people seek attention. Attention-seeking behaviors are often rooted in insecurity, a lack of self-worth, or an overwhelming need for validation. For individuals with cluster B traits, attention serves as a way to soothe their internal anxieties or bolster their self-image. Here's how attention-seeking behaviors manifest in different cluster B disorders. IDD, or impulsive disregard disorder, or ASPD. For those with IDD, our word for antisocial personality disorder, attention-seeking can be a form of manipulation or control. They might use dramatic or risky behaviors to capture attention, not because they need validation, but because they want to dominate the situation or assert power. Their need for attention is more about maintaining control over others, using the spotlight as a tool to manipulate or achieve their goals. ESFD, or extreme self-focused disorder, or NPD. People with ESFD seek attention to reinforce their grandiose self-image. They crave admiration and validation, and when they don't receive it, they may go to great lengths to draw attention back to themselves. This might include boasting, exaggerating achievements, or belittling others to maintain their superior position. Their need for attention is driven by their fragile ego, which requires constant feeding from external sources. EID, or emotional intensity disorder, or BPD. Individuals with EID may engage in attention-seeking behaviors as a way to regulate their intense emotions. They often feel overwhelmed by their emotional states and seek reassurance, comfort, or validation from others to stabilize themselves. This can lead to clinginess, melodramatic reactions, or attempts to monopolize conversations or social situations. Their need for attention stems from a fear of abandonment or a desire to feel connected, even if their methods are disruptive. DASD, or dramatic attention-seeking disorder, or HPD. For those with DASD, attention-seeking is the core of their behavior. They constantly crave the spotlight and will do almost anything to keep it on themselves. Whether it's through exaggerated storytelling, creating unnecessary drama, or even provoking conflict, their goal is to remain the center of attention at all times. Their self-worth is deeply tied to how much attention they receive, and when they feel ignored or overlooked, they may escalate their behavior to regain focus. The impact of attention-seeking behaviors. Living with someone who constantly seeks attention can be exhausting. Their need for validation, admiration, or reassurance can dominate conversations, social events, and even personal interactions, leaving little space for others to express themselves. Over time, friends, partners, and family members may feel drained by the constant emotional demands, finding it difficult to maintain a balanced, reciprocal relationship. For the person engaging in attention-seeking behaviors, the constant search for validation often leads to shallow, unstable relationships. While they may initially draw people in with their charisma or dramatic flair, these relationships can quickly deteriorate as others become weary of always playing the supportive role. The inability to share attention or allow others their moment can lead to isolation as people pull away to protect their own emotional energy. Protecting yourself. If you're in a relationship with someone who consistently seeks attention, it's important to set boundaries around how much emotional energy you're willing to give. While it's natural to offer support and validation in any relationship, it should be balanced, with both parties feeling heard and valued. Encourage the person to seek professional help if their need for attention is affecting their relationships, but also recognize when it's time to distance yourself if their behavior becomes overwhelming or toxic. Your own emotional health should not be sacrificed to constantly fulfill someone else's need for attention. Why you can't be in a relationship with someone who manipulates. The education gap. One of the most frustrating aspects of being in a relationship with someone who manipulates or displays other traits from the cluster B spectrum is the sheer amount of emotional groundwork you would need to lay before any real progress could even begin. While emotionally intelligent, healthy people have already learned many fundamental lessons about empathy, accountability, and mutual respect, those who exhibit those traits often lack even the most basic understanding of these concepts. The real issue? You can't have an authentic reciprocal relationship because you would essentially be starting from square one, trying to explain what most people already understand by default. In emotionally intelligent relationships, the core principles like trust, respect, emotional regulation, and mutual support are almost innate. Both partners already grasp these concepts at a deep, fundamental level. They know, without needing an elaborate conversation, how to be considerate, how to empathize, how to be accountable, and how to handle conflict in a mature way. But when you're dealing with someone who manipulates or exhibits cluster B traits, it's like trying to teach someone a language they've never even heard of. You're not just trying to fix one specific behavior or address one misunderstanding. You're dealing with a person who lacks the very foundation required to even begin having these conversations. It's not a matter of one or two things that need to be learned or corrected. It's dozens of deeply ingrained behaviors, thought patterns, and emotional responses that have to be unlearned and rebuilt from scratch. Imagine trying to explain the nuances of emotional authenticity, respect, and trust, but before you can even begin, you realize they don't understand empathy, accountability, boundaries, or what a healthy relationship even looks like. You would literally have to teach them 48 other lessons before they could even grasp the basic concept of what you're talking about. They're operating on a completely different level of emotional awareness, one where manipulation, self-serving actions, and deflection are their default settings. The fundamental problem is this. In most relationships, you're building together, growing together, and learning together as equals. But in a relationship with someone who manipulates or displays these toxic traits, you're more like a teacher trying to elevate someone from emotional grade school to an adult level of understanding. And even if you could do that, assuming they're even willing to learn, it's a Herculean task, one that no relationship can realistically survive. The emotional exhaustion alone is enough to erode any authentic connection. You're not partners building together. You're their emotional caretaker, trying to drag them up to a basic level of understanding just so they can grasp concepts that most people already know and live by instinctively. For you, these things are obvious. Treat people with respect, don't manipulate them, be accountable for your actions. But for someone with these traits, it's like trying to explain quantum physics before they even understand basic math. The education gap is so wide that by the time you quote-unquote teach them about the 48 foundational things they need to know, you've sacrificed your own emotional well-being, and the relationship has become an exhausting, one-sided project rather than a healthy partnership. Why you can't be with them. Authenticity requires a shared understanding of basic emotional truths. When you're with someone who manipulates or operates from a cluster B mindset, you're not just missing the deeper connection, you're missing the basic human connection. You'd have to invest so much energy just teaching them the fundamentals that the relationship will never have room to flourish into something real, because you're stuck doing the emotional labor of explaining the basics over and over again. You deserve to be with someone who already knows what it means to be a decent human being, someone who can meet you at your level, be on the same page, and build with you rather than dragging you down to their ground floor, making you responsible for their emotional education. Conclusion, the final word on cluster B behaviors. As we come to the end of this series on cluster B personality traits and behaviors, it's important to reflect on what we've covered and why this knowledge is crucial for maintaining our emotional well-being. Whether it's manipulation, emotional dysregulation, attention-seeking, or any of the other toxic behaviors we've explored, the common thread is that these patterns are rooted in a deep inability to form healthy, reciprocal relationships. For emotionally intelligent people, these behaviors can be baffling, even painful, because they defy the basic rules of human connection that most of us have learned from a young age. That's why engaging with individuals who exhibit these traits can feel like an endless uphill battle. You're constantly having to explain, teach, and justify concepts that should be second nature. The truth is, trying to have a relationship with someone who consistently manipulates, disregards boundaries, or refuses accountability will drain you. You can't fix them. You can't teach them to feel empathy or to stop seeking validation from unhealthy sources. You'd have to start at the ground floor and teach them dozens of basic emotional lessons that emotionally intelligent people already know and live by. And if you could teach them, it would take an immense amount of energy and emotional labor, energy you could be spending on building real, authentic connections with people who already get it. The reality is, you deserve better than that. You deserve relationships where you don't have to carry the emotional weight, where trust, respect, and empathy are shared effortlessly. Relationships where your boundaries are respected, your emotions are valued, and your growth is supported. So as you move forward, keep this in mind. The best relationships are those where you meet someone at your level, on the same page, someone who doesn't need to be taught how to be a decent human being. Surround yourself with people who understand the basics of emotional intelligence, who can meet you with authenticity, and who don't require you to take on the exhausting role of teacher, fixer, or caregiver. Remember, the most emotionally intelligent decision you can make is to protect your energy and focus on relationships that nurture your growth, rather than relationships that drag you into a cycle of emotional labor. You are worthy of that, and never let anyone make you feel otherwise. This wraps up our final episode in this 5-part series. Thank you for taking this journey with us. Hopefully, these insights have given you clarity, validation, and the tools you need to navigate your relationships with more confidence and self-respect. Until next time, stay strong, stay true to yourself, and always remember to choose relationships that bring you peace and growth.